My parents laughed when I said I'd build software for cities. Stop fixing printers, my brother said. Yesterday, I signed a $240 million contract with the city that keeps their lights on. Now they won't stop texting me about how proud they've always been. Hey, Reddit. My family never believed in my computer nonsense. So I left, built something they couldn't ignore, and now they all suddenly want to talk. But let me start from the beginning. My name's Imogene Johnson. I'm 32 now. But this started long before the tech, the late nights, and the servers. I grew up in Highland Park, Illinois, one of those suburbs where everyone mows their lawn twice a week and pretends their family's perfect. My dad, Robert, was a civil engineer. He built bridges until one of them collapsed during construction when I was 9. He never talked about it, but the silence afterward changed everything. From then on, reliability wasn't just something he cared about. It was an obsession. He'd say, things either stand or they don't. Like that explained the whole world. Mom, Helen, was a middle school math teacher. She was kind, practical, and agreed with Dad on almost everything, even when she didn't. My older brother, Victor, was the golden child. Straight A's, tennis, debate, volunteering at the hospital, already talking about med school before junior year. Whenever we went to family events, people would ask about him first. Then they'd remember me. And the younger one still into computers? Dad would laugh and say, yeah, she's experimenting. I started with that old beige desktop in the living room. It was supposed to be Mom's for grading, but I'd sneak downstairs after everyone went to bed and mess with it. Sometimes I broke it completely, but I always fixed it. That's how I learned. Computers didn't yell, didn't sigh, didn't judge. They just gave you results. Dinner was where the hierarchy showed. Victor talked about biology labs, and everyone listened like he was giving a keynote. When I mentioned the robotics club, Mom smiled politely and asked if I'd finish my calculus homework. Dad would go on about real jobs, meaning anything involving steel or concrete. Code to him wasn't work, it was air. By high school, I stopped trying to explain. I'd eat, do homework, then disappear into the basement to code until midnight. When I was 15, I joined a state programming competition. I made a scheduling app for our school that cut teachers' admin time in half. We won first place. Mom congratulated me. Dad said, "That's nice, but don't let it distract from real studies." That night, Victor came home with a pre-med internship offer, and everyone celebrated. I didn't say a word. When college applications came, I applied to every place Dad liked, MIT, Illinois, Purdue, but for computer engineering, not civil. I didn't tell him. When the Northwestern acceptance letter arrived, he opened it first. I'll never forget his face. Not angry, just disappointed. Computer engineering? You can do better than that. That summer, I worked at a computer repair shop downtown. The owner, Mark, barely spoke, just handed me broken machines. One day he said, "You don't panic when things fail. That's rare." I didn't realize how true that was until much later. When I finally left for college, Mom hugged me, Dad shook my hand, and Victor told me to keep my options open. It felt like they were all reading from the same script. I drove away thinking I'd prove myself one day, not by building bridges, but by building something that never broke. Even Northwestern hit me like a system booting for the first time. Loud, fast, full of bugs to fix. My dorm smelled like new paint and burnt popcorn. The first week, Mom texted daily. Dad called once and asked, "So, what's your backup plan if this computer thing doesn't pan out?" I don't need one. That's not how real life works. I spent most days in the engineering building. It felt more like home than the dorm ever did. That's where I met Logan Reyes, older, maybe late 20s, with a short military haircut and a quiet focus that made people move out of his way. We got paired for a systems optimization project. While everyone else picked easy topics, Logan said, "Let's model something that actually breaks." Logan was a returning vet finishing his degree on GI Bill credits, older than the rest of us, and he'd been auditing a couple of grad seminars while wrapping the last undergraduate requirements. We decided to simulate power usage across campus, dorms, labs, cafeterias, to predict when equipment might fail. Boring on paper, but we liked problems no one else wanted. Logan told stories from his time fixing field sensors overseas. "The difference between a glitch and a disaster is 5 seconds," he said once. That line stuck. We ran tests late into the night using real campus data. One weekend, we saw weird readings, voltage spikes in the West Engineering Wing. The university systems didn't flag it, but our code kept alerting. Logan checked the logs. Either we messed up or something's about to fry. At midnight, we walked to the West Wing, laptops in hand. The hall was dark except for the red emergency lights. In the mechanical room, one generator panel was humming and giving off heat. Logan touched the casing and swore, "That thing's seconds from shorting." We shut it down manually and reported it to maintenance. The next day, a campus email thanked staff for quick response preventing major damage. Logan laughed. "Guess luck's getting credit again." 2 days later, campus IT emailed us a warning about unauthorized monitoring scripts. They threatened suspension. I tried explaining we'd stopped a failure. The reply said, "Intentions don't override policy." We purged the logs to satisfy the policy on paper and moved the prototype off the university network. Our script worked. It did exactly what we wanted. Catch something before it broke. No one knew. And somehow that made it better. After that, Logan and I started hanging out more. He wasn't a talker, but he listened hard. He taught me to think about systems like living things, how heat, stress, and human error all connect. I showed him how to automate the boring parts. By mid-semester, we practically lived in the lab. We ate vending machine bars and only talked when something failed. Logan said he liked working with me because I didn't panic. I said the same thing about him. That's when we built the first version of the Watchdog, the prototype that would later evolve into Urban Guard. It ran quietly on an old lab box we'd isolated from the university network, pulling data from sensors we definitely weren't supposed to access. One night, the server froze for 30 seconds. When it came back, it flagged a heat spike in a dorm's mechanical room. Maintenance replaced a busted cooling fan the next day. No outage, no news. We caught it first. A professor called it lucky timing. I wanted to correct him, but Logan said, "Let it go." It worked, so we kept improving it. I handled the code. He wired the hardware. It was clean, steady, and invisible. Exactly what I liked. Around that time, I stopped calling home as much. Every call was the same. "How's class?" "Good. What are you building?" I'd explain, and Dad would interrupt. "But how does that make money?" That was the end of every conversation. By spring, the Watchdog was running on 2 campus buildings off the official backbone without anyone knowing. That semester, I got straight A's and a formal warning for unauthorized system use. The irony wasn't lost on me. The night before summer break, we sat outside the engineering building, watching lights go out across campus. Logan said, "Most people build stuff to show off. We build stuff so no one ever has to think about it." I nodded. That was the moment it clicked for me. I didn't want to make flashy gadgets or chase attention. I wanted to build things that worked quietly and never failed. Then graduation day came faster than I expected. Northwestern's quad was full of people in purple gowns, taking photos like they were done learning. I wasn't sure if I felt finished. Logan and I already had plans. Logan wasn't walking that day. He'd finish his remaining credits the next term. But he showed up anyway because we were already acting like a company. After the ceremony, Victor found me near the library. He was in his white coat, still carrying that effortless confidence he'd had since we were kids. "So, little sister," he said, giving my cap a flick. "Computer engineering, huh? You fixing printers now or what?" I smiled because that's what I always did when he joked. "Something like that," I said. He laughed. "Seriously, though, what do you even do with that degree? You going to make apps for restaurant menus?" Logan, who'd been standing next to me, crossed his arms. "She builds systems that keep those hospitals of yours from shutting down," he said flatly. Victor looked at him, amused. "Right. Well, when you figure out how to make that pay rent, give me a call." He clapped my shoulder and walked off toward his car. Logan watched him leave and said, "Guy's a doctor, huh?" "Resident," I said. "Figures. Doctors think if they can't see it, it doesn't exist." A month later, we signed a 6-month lease on a tiny space above a closed laundromat in Wicker Park. We scraped together our savings, mostly from freelance jobs and small repair gigs, and bought 2 used servers off Craigslist. We named them Echo and Sentinel. The first few weeks were chaos. We had no funding, no clients, and no real plan besides make Urban Guard real. Logan slept on a camping mat in the corner. I lived on instant noodles and canned soup. We worked 16-hour days writing and testing code that barely stayed online. To keep money coming in, we fixed network issues for small offices and upgraded old building control panels. Logan was good at talking to building managers. I was better at making their old systems behave. Most of them didn't understand what we were doing, but they liked that things ran smoother after we left. By fall, we'd finished the first stable version of Urban Guard. It wasn't much, just a basic dashboard that tracked power, temperature, and system errors, but it ran automatically without babysitting. The problem was, no one wanted to pay for something they couldn't see. Then we got a call from a maintenance supervisor at a small private hospital downtown. He'd heard about us from one of our office clients. Their backup generator kept failing safety checks and they couldn't figure out why. Logan and I met him the next day. The hospital basement was a maze of pipes, cables, and metal cabinets humming in the dark. The air smelled like oil and warm metal. The supervisor, a guy named Harris, wiped his hands on his coveralls and said, "If you can get this thing to stop tripping alarms, you've got a permanent client." We spent the rest of the day installing sensors and connecting them to our system. It was the first time Urban Guard ran outside our office. Watching those green dots appear on the screen, each one a live feed from a generator, felt like turning on a heartbeat monitor for a machine. That night, a storm rolled in over the lake. Heavy rain, thunder close enough to shake the windows. I was asleep on the office couch when my phone buzzed. It was Logan. "You seeing this?" he asked. I sat up and looked at the dashboard. The hospital's main generator had switched to emergency mode, then went red. The backup was seconds from overloading. "Run the manual override," I said. "I tried. The control signal's not getting through." "Get Harris on the line," I said. Logan three-wayed him in. His voice was rough with sleep. "Harris, we're seeing a stuck relay on the main. I need you in the mechanical room, panel 7B. Tell me when you're there." Footsteps, a door, metal. "At 7B. Okay." "Lift the clear guard. Move the bypass lever from main to secondary. You'll feel resistance. That's normal. On 3, 1, 2, now." The dashboard lagged. Then the trace dropped. Urban Guard's failsafe had already isolated the fault. Once Harris moved the bypass, the load shifted cleanly to the secondary line and the reading stabilized. 5 minutes later, the red lights turned green again. Power restored. ICU stable. Logan exhaled over the phone. "We just saved a hospital." "No," I said. "We saved a machine that saved a hospital." The next morning, we went down to check things in person. Harris met us at the door, looking half awake and completely confused. "We didn't even know it went down," he said. "Local device alerts pinged, but the building-wide alarm never escalated. The failover finished inside thresholds." "How'd you pull that off?" "Just fixed some logic errors," Logan said. Harris grinned and handed us a stack of forms. "Whatever you did, keep doing it. The board wants to extend your contract." A month later, a sister facility in the same network signed on. Only later did I realize it was the one where Victor pulled shifts. That was the first time we got paid for real work under the Urban Guard name. It wasn't much, but it covered rent for 2 months and enough spare parts to expand. We bought another used server and added redundancy. We also stopped treating the loft like a data center. Production moved to a single rack colocation space with proper power and cooling. We kept cloud capacity for spikes, and we dropped rugged edge boxes in each building. The office kept the test rigs. Production lived where failure was boring. For weeks after, we barely left the office. Every day was a loop: test, deploy, patch, eat, crash, repeat. Logan took calls from new clients. I refined the code to handle more sensors. The system started running smoother, predicting small failures before they happened. One night while labeling a new batch of data, Logan said, "You ever tell your family what we're doing?" I shook my head. "They wouldn't get it." He smirked. "That doctor brother of yours would probably bill you for emotional stress." I laughed for the first time in days. "Yeah, probably." By winter, we were monitoring 4 office buildings, 2 warehouses, and that hospital. We weren't rich, but we were surviving. Every new contract came from word of mouth. Our uptime reports kept showing up in facilities' board minutes. Apparently, that's how the Department of Urban Systems started tracking us. One evening, I found myself staring at the dashboard. Hundreds of green lights flickering across Chicago. I thought about Dad's words. Things either stand or they don't. These lights were standing because of us. We filed the paperwork for full incorporation a week later. No ceremony, no press release, just a small sign taped to the wall, Urban Guard Systems, Inc. That night, as we locked up, Logan looked at the glowing city skyline and said, "We're not fixing printers anymore." I nodded. "No, we're building something that can't afford to fail." By the time I turned 30, Urban Guard was running quietly in the background of half a dozen buildings across Chicago. Over the next year, referrals and compliance checks pushed us past boutique scale. Slowly at first, 7 buildings, then 10. We still kept our heads down. The maps just got busier. We weren't famous or rich, but we were stable. Our clients liked that we didn't make noise, just uptime reports and quick fixes. We worked mostly through referrals. No website, no marketing. It was better that way. The fewer people who knew who I was, the fewer wanted to interfere. I'd moved into a small apartment in River North, barely furnished. Just a mattress, a folding table, and 6 monitors glowing day and night. My schedule wasn't really human anymore. I'd nap for an hour, work 4, eat whatever I could heat in the microwave. The only sound in the room came from the fans and the servers humming along the wall. Most days blurred together, a mix of system checks, building alerts, and maintenance calls. Logan handled on-site work now. He liked people. I didn't. We'd meet twice a week at the office to review data and contracts. He'd tell stories about clients who didn't understand their own equipment, and I'd quietly fix the problems they didn't realize they had. Despite running a network that literally kept power on for thousands of people, my parents still thought I fixed computers for a small tech firm. I never corrected them. It wasn't worth explaining something they didn't believe in. Then came Thanksgiving. Mom called 2 weeks early to remind me that everyone's expecting you this year. I hadn't been home in months. I said I'd come, though part of me already regretted it. When I showed up, the house looked the same. The same brick siding, the same mailbox with Dad's name fading off. Mom hugged me at the door, then immediately asked if I'd brought a jacket. Dad was in the living room watching a football game with the volume too high. My brother Victor was already there, sitting next to him in his hospital scrubs, eating pie before dinner like he owned the place. "Well, look who decided to show up," Dad said without looking away from the TV. "The computer woman herself," Victor smirked. "Hey, at least she's consistent. Still fixing routers." I set my coat on the chair and forced a laugh. Something like that. Dinner started normal enough. Mom passed around the turkey. Dad talked about local news. Victor told a story about a complicated surgery he'd assisted on. Every sentence out of his mouth got a reaction. Mom's proud smile, Dad's approving nod. Then Mom turned to me. "And how's work, Imogene? Still doing, what do you call it, network stuff?" "It's going well," I said. "We just expanded to a few new buildings downtown." Victor raised an eyebrow. "Oh, so like office maintenance." "More like infrastructure management," I said. "We handle systems that monitor." Dad cut me off with a chuckle. "Sounds like she's still playing computer games. You should let your brother show you what real work looks like sometime." Mom frowned lightly. "Robert," he shrugged. "What? It's true. One of you saves lives. The other stares at screens." The words hit harder than I expected, mostly because he didn't mean them to be cruel. He just believed them. Victor leaned back in his chair, clearly enjoying the moment. "You know, I could get you something at the hospital's IT department. They're always hiring techs. Benefits, steady pay, real hours." Mom smiled like he'd just solved a problem. "That would be perfect. You could move closer to your brother." "I'm fine where I am," I said. Dad waved his fork. "No shame in steady work, daughter. Stability is everything. Computers crash. Bridges stay standing." I put down my glass and said quietly, "Your bridges collapsed once, too." The room froze. Mom's smile disappeared. Victor shot me a look. Dad's jaw clenched, but he didn't say anything. The game on TV filled the silence. I stood up. "Thanks for dinner," I said. "Food was great." Mom got up too, trying to fix it. "Imogene, don't leave. But I was already grabbing my jacket. "I've got work tonight," I said. It wasn't a lie. Outside, the air was cold and sharp. I sat in my car for a few minutes, watching the lights from the windows flicker against the snow. Inside that house, they thought I was lost. Out here, I was the one keeping their world from going dark. That night, back at my apartment, I logged in to check the systems. The hospital where Victor worked was one of our biggest clients. I stared at its node on the Urban Guard dashboard. Green, stable, perfect. He didn't know it, but his entire department depended on my code running right. I didn't tell Logan about the dinner. He probably would have said something sarcastic like, "They'll get it when they get the bill." Instead, we just worked through the next few weeks monitoring new contracts. Across the following 9 months, those few new buildings turned into a network. Harris's hospital referred 2 sister sites. A property group bundled 3 towers. Warehouse operators copied each other once they saw the uptime reports. By the following fall, Urban Guard had grown faster than either of us planned. We were handling critical networks for 4 hospitals, 7 office towers, and a handful of warehouses, up from the 6 sites I'd been bragging about at 30. Every day, the system gathered thousands of data points, heat maps, voltage patterns, air pressure logs. I'd built the alerts to be subtle, almost invisible, because if Urban Guard was doing its job right, no one should ever notice it. One afternoon, Logan came into the office holding a folder. "New lead," he said. "Some government department wants to talk, something called the Department of Urban Systems." I looked up from the screen. "What do they want?" He flipped through the papers. Evaluation contract. They're testing citywide infrastructure solutions, energy grids, water systems, public buildings. They want to see if we can handle load scaling across multiple sectors. "That's not small," I said. "Yeah," he replied. "It's the kind of deal that either makes us legit or buries us in paperwork." I opened my inbox. There it was. An official email from Amanda Parker, lead auditor, Department of Urban Systems. The subject line read, "Evaluation Inquiry, Urban Guard Integration Proposal." I clicked it open. Her message was direct. "We've been following your work on regional building systems. Urban Guard appears to meet several criteria for public safety infrastructure. We'd like to schedule an initial audit next month." The email included a standard 90-day pilot services agreement, legal cover so we could plug into the city's sandbox during evaluation. We signed it that afternoon. Logan leaned over my shoulder. "You realize if this goes through, we're not under the radar anymore." I nodded slowly. Maybe it's time we stopped hiding. Still, part of me hesitated. The quiet had always been my comfort. Now, for the first time, it felt like someone was about to look behind the curtain. The first call happened on a Thursday. I joined through voice only. My camera stayed off as usual. "Good morning, Ms. Johnson," Amanda said. Her voice was clear and steady, the kind you hear from people who never second-guess themselves. "We appreciate your cooperation." "Happy to help," I said. "We like when systems are tested, keeps them honest." She paused for a second before answering. "We'll see about that." Amanda asked questions for almost an hour. Uptime percentages, redundancy layers, failover thresholds, encrypted protocols. She didn't waste words. She knew what to look for. When the meeting ended, she said, "We'll schedule an in-person audit next week. My team will need access to your lab and your production rack." "Understood," I said. After the call, Logan leaned back. "She's thorough." "She's efficient," I corrected. "There's a difference." 2 days later, NextPace made their move. Their CEO, Brandon Crane, showed up in an industry article announcing his company's vision for next-generation civic automation. Big words, no substance. He was all marketing. Slick hair, tailored suits, expensive sound bites. The article mentioned that NextPace had also been invited to compete for the same contract. Logan read it out loud. Crane says, "Citizens deserve smarter cities, and only NextPace has the technology to deliver." I rolled my eyes. He's selling buzzwords, not reliability. "He's selling himself," Logan said, "and the city eats that up." The following week, Amanda's audit team arrived. I didn't meet them in person. Logan handled the on-site part at our office while I monitored remotely. He texted me as they walked in. 3 people, suits, laptops, no smiles. Amanda led the group. She wasn't what I expected. Mid-30s, professional, precise. Everything about her was neat. Clothes, notes, posture. She didn't waste time on introductions. Let's start with your redundancy network, she said. We'll trace data flows from sensor to cloud. Logan gave them a quick rundown, then called me on speaker. Imogene's our system architect, he said. She'll answer the deeper questions. Amanda's voice came through the line. Ms. Johnson, why do you operate without external API dependencies? Because we've seen what happens when third-party services fail, I said. We'd rather take the blame than pass it around. She wrote something down. That's a rare philosophy for startups. We're not a startup, I said. We just never stopped running like one. She didn't respond, but I could tell she respected that. The audit lasted 4 hours. When they left, Logan called me. She's sharp. Didn't miss a single detail. How did it go? I think we impressed them, but she's not easy to read. Good, I said. People who are easy to read make mistakes. That night, Logan and I stayed late running diagnostics. We wanted the system spotless for the next phase. The city planned a stress test simulating peak demand on the grid, emergency power transitions, even data overload scenarios. It was the kind of test that made most systems break. If Urban Guard held up, we'd prove we could manage Chicago's critical infrastructure. If it didn't, we'd be finished. While reviewing the simulation data, Logan looked up from his screen. You think Crane will try something? Probably, I said. He doesn't play fair. He's got investors, lobbyists, press. We've got 2 engineers. And caffeine, and uptime, I said. He grinned. Guess we'll see which one wins. The next morning, Amanda scheduled the final call before the stress test. Her tone was slightly different, still professional, but more conversational. I have to say, Ms. Johnson, your network architecture is unusually lean. How many engineers do you employ? 3 full-time, 2 contractors. That's small. Efficiency isn't about headcount, I said. True. She hesitated for the first time. You sound familiar, by the way. I can't place it. I didn't reply right away. Maybe I've been in too many briefings lately, I said. She let it go. Tomorrow, 9:00 a.m., we'll begin the simulation. I'll be on site. My team will handle oversight. I expect you'll monitor remotely. Always do. After she hung up, Logan gave me a strange look. She said you sound familiar. You 2 ever meet? I shook my head. No chance. But later that night, something about her name stuck in my head. Amanda Parker. I couldn't figure out why. It wasn't until I scrolled through Victor's social media for the first time in months that I saw it. Victor Johnson and Amanda Parker, engaged. My stomach sank. Logan noticed the look on my face. What? She's engaged to my brother, I said quietly. He blinked. The doctor brother? Yeah. He let out a low whistle. Well, that's going to make this test awkward. More like dangerous, I said. Because if the system failed tomorrow, it wouldn't just be Urban Guard's reputation on the line. It'd be my name, her job, and the one person in my family who never stopped thinking I was a joke. The stress test wasn't just a test anymore. It was personal. The citywide stress test began on a gray Tuesday. Logan was at the office before 6, pacing between screens. Amanda Parker and her audit team were across town at the Department of Urban Systems, ready to watch every packet of data. By 7, thousands of nodes were pinging green across Chicago. Power grids, water systems, hospital backups, all feeding through Urban Guard. At first, the load was smooth. Logan cracked a soda. Might actually go easy. It didn't. At 8:13, a minor alert flashed. Voltage spikes in 3 buildings. Then, unrelated sectors dropped. A hospital grid went offline. Within seconds, a third of our map glowed yellow, then red. Every alarm screamed. That's not part of the simulation, Logan said. No, I muttered. It's real. He typed furiously. Someone injected code into the feed, looping false sensor data. During evaluation, both vendors pushed through the city's sandbox exchange, a shared telemetry bus. Nextpace abused that bus, replaying doctored packets as if they were ours. The pattern was too precise. This isn't a glitch, I said. It's sabotage. Crane, Logan said. Has to be. I didn't answer. I was already isolating corrupted sectors, rerouting clean nodes. Elevators stopped mid-floor. Traffic lights froze. Amanda's voice cut through the conference line. Ms. Johnson, we're seeing massive failures. Is this your doing? No, I snapped. External interference. I need proof. I'll get it. The code signature looked familiar. Ours, but twisted. I pulled an old backup and matched it. Logan, I said, that's our code. Ours? Nextpace lifted our prototype when they tried to buy us out. He's using our own framework against us. Logan muttered. Then we take it back. We started rerouting manually, one node at a time. Automated protocols were dead. It was just us and our redundancy layers. My phone buzzed repeatedly. Logan said, answer it before you lose focus. It was Mom. Imogene, she said, voice tight. Do you ever plan on calling us again? Mom, now's not... You always say that. Do you even know your father was in the hospital last month? I froze. Why? Stress, blood pressure. He won't admit it, but he misses you. And Victor says you never return his messages. I'll call him later. You always promise, her voice cracked. You're still part of this family. You don't just disappear because of a tech company. The monitors flared red again. Logan shouted, We're losing Grid 3! I have to go, I said, ending the call. The next 30 minutes were chaos. Half the city's infrastructure wavered. Amanda came back on. If you can't fix this, we'll terminate the evaluation. You do that, the city shuts down, I said. Then you'd better fix it. Logan took hardware overrides. I dug into the software core, stripping corrupted packets, rebuilding connections. The room temperature climbed as servers strained. At 9:27, Logan yelled, Hospital grid's back online. Good, I said. Keep pushing east. Amanda's team stayed silent, just watching to see if we could hold it. Then Victor called. Worst timing. I ignored it. He called again. Finally, I answered. What's going on? He demanded. Half the hospital's on backup. I know, we're fixing it. This is your system, the one that just failed. It didn't fail, I said through my teeth. Someone hit it. He laughed angrily. So, the city's crashing because of your little side project? I told Mom you'd get in over your head. You can thank me later when the lights come back on, I said and hung up. Logan had already rerouted the final sectors. I typed the last command to restart the master controller. The map flickered, then stabilized. All the red lights faded to green, just the hum of the servers. Logan leaned back, exhausted. We're good. Amanda came back on the line. Is the network stable? Check your monitors, I said. A pause confirmed it. All sectors back online. She exhaled, the first relief I'd heard from her all week. Ms. Johnson, you just prevented a total blackout. Logan grinned weakly. Guess the test was successful. I wasn't smiling. My phone kept vibrating. Mom, Victor, even Dad. Guilt twisted in my chest, but I shoved it aside. Amanda spoke again. We'll need a full debrief. You'll have to explain how this breach happened. I already know, I said. It was Nextpace. The packet fingerprints matched the snapshot we logged 2 years ago. Their engineers lifted our early framework and twisted it back into the sandbox. I'll need proof. I'll send you the logs. Do that, she said, and hung up. The moment the line went dead, Logan dropped his headset and leaned against the desk. You realize what just happened? Yeah, I said quietly. We just saved the city from the system meant to test us. He nodded. Crane's not walking away clean. I sat down, rubbing the back of my neck. My phone buzzed again. A text from Mom. We just saw the news. Were you part of that city thing? Please call us. We're worried. I stared at the message before locking the screen. The city was stable again. Logan broke the silence. You going to call them back? Not yet, I said. There's still too much to fix. Even with Chicago lit up below us, all I could think about was how easily everything could go dark again. The next morning came without sleep. Chicago had power again, but I didn't. Urban Guard servers were steady, the logs clear. Nextpace had launched the breach using our stolen prototype code at 7 sharp. Amanda Parker called. Her voice was calm but tired. We've confirmed it, she said. Nextpace's clusters match your timestamps. You're cleared. I let out a slow breath. What you and your team did kept this city running, she added. You should be proud. I didn't do it for pride, I said. Systems aren't supposed to fail. There was a pause then. You sound like your brother. That caught me. You know about Victor? I didn't make the connection until last night. Johnson didn't narrow it down. Half my caseload is Johnson's. But the hospital flagged you as Urban Guard's emergency contact when the backup grid failed. That's when I asked Victor, and well, he confirmed. My stomach sank. So now you know. He's worried about you, she said quietly. He won't admit it, but he is. Before I could answer, Logan walked in with coffee. Amanda's tone shifted. There's a press briefing this afternoon. The department's announcing a new partnership with Urban Guard. Your family's been invited. My family? Yes, she said. Victor asked for it. She hung up before I could protest. By noon, Next Pace was collapsing publicly. News outlets ran the story nonstop. Private firm causes citywide breach. Urban Guard prevents blackout. Brandon Crane tried to frame it as a technical miscommunication, but Amanda's report and our logs were everywhere. Emails poured in. Journalists, investors, even city officials wanted meetings. Logan grinned. Guess we're the heroes now. Don't say that, I muttered. Heroes don't get audited. The briefing was held at City Hall. The place was packed. Press, officials, and more cameras than I'd ever seen. Logan wore a jacket. I didn't bother. The city had reserved a small section for the Urban Guard team and their families. My family sat near the front, Mom, Dad, and Victor. Seeing them all there felt heavier than any speech. Amanda opened the conference. Yesterday proved reliability isn't about flash or funding. It's about trust. When everything failed, Urban Guard held the line. She turned toward us. Founded by Imogene Johnson and Logan Reyes, Urban Guard quietly managed critical systems across Chicago for years. Their technology prevented a total shutdown of hospitals, transportation, and utilities. Then she paused and smiled slightly at the cameras. Today, we're announcing a 10-year, $240 million partnership between the City of Chicago and Urban Guard Systems, with citywide expansion over the next decade. Applause filled the room. I stood because Logan nudged me. Cameras flashed. Amanda finished. It's not every day a system saves a city. Maybe it's time we recognize the people who build them. When it ended, Mom hugged me before I could react. I can't believe it, she said. They said you saved Chicago. Dad's voice cracked slightly. You made us proud today, sweetheart. It didn't sound rehearsed. It sounded real. Victor shook my hand, smiling. Guess all that router fixing paid off. Guess so, I said. He nodded. You proved me wrong, and I'm glad. Mom touched my arm. Come home soon. We miss you. I didn't argue. For once, there was no edge to her voice. Amanda walked over, still in professional mode, but smiling for real this time. Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, your daughter's team did exceptional work. Mom laughed nervously. So, you're the one who found out they were family? Amanda nodded. Took a power crisis to figure it out. Victor slipped an arm around her. Told you she was smarter than both of us. I smiled faintly. No argument there. 3 weeks later, the deal was signed. Urban Guard executed a master services agreement and stood up a joint program office inside the Smart Infrastructure Division. Logan became head of deployment. I was named Chief Systems Director. My new office had a view that stretched across the entire downtown grid. The buildings below pulsed softly with our system's heartbeat, each one connected, stable, alive. Amanda dropped by with 2 coffees. Still can't believe how quiet it is when everything works, she said. That's the goal, I replied. She nodded toward the window. Your brother said hospitals feel the same way when the machines keep running. Guess reliability runs in your family. I looked out at the city. The skyline glowed in rows of green light, everyone powered by something we'd built from scratch. Amanda smiled. You built something that lasts, Imogene. Yeah, I said, and this time everyone knows it. The city stayed bright, steady, alive, and for the first time in years, so did I.